Hey guys, this is going to be a short one today. I'm going to go and send the link out everywhere, and then we'll just get into it. It's probably only going to take me 30 minutes today. Let's go and post this everywhere. How is everyone? It is a Tuesday afternoon. Probably lunch break for a lot of us that work. And let's put this down here. All right, there we go. Well, this is, like I said, I'm only going to do about 20-30 minutes today. I'm going to give everybody how my experience went. We're going to jump into each of these top deck lists. I'm going to spend like 2 minutes on each list, maybe, probably 1 minute per list. Just jump into it, talk about the main idea, if it's can hold up in the long run, if it was something we were expecting, something new. Hello, Thomas Redman, and 1234 Jonan. How are you guys doing? I'm thankful that you guys are here. It's gonna be a short one, just gonna talk about my experience. But okay, Webcam Regional this past weekend, I went with Chaos Mirio, and I got lucky enough to get top 8, finishing in 7th place. I chose Mirio because of younger. And when you're facing younger, you need to be able to play a character where you can realistically kill him before he kills you. And Mirio has a very, very aggressive game plan. He can zero out something on face. We can play a few disruption pieces like Runaway, Cheerful Uppercut, Broken Psyche to kind of extend our life a little bit more. So we can buy ourselves that extra turn against Younger, and then we can defeat Younger in 2 or 3 turns. We're typically not going to be killing Younger in 1 turn. Mirio gets to turn 2 a lot of people. Doesn't typically get to turn 2 Younger. He's not going to be going through that 32 health total. He's going to need a few turns. But Mirio felt like a good character to do it because of the defense that he gets on face. That's why I went with Mirio. I felt very pigeonholed as to the characters I could choose in this meta, with Younger Toguro being the elephant in the room. In my testing of Mirio versus Younger, I was going about 50-50 with him. It didn't feel great, but it didn't feel bad. And then Mirio just kind of slaughters everybody else, typically. So if I have a 75% win probability against the field and a 50-50 matchup with Younger, that's good enough with me. We'll roll with it. That's why I rolled with Chaos Mirio. Also, he's just a character that I'm very familiar with and his play patterns, and felt comfortable playing Mirio. In the event, my first round, I was on stream, I played a Toga 3, and I'll lump round 3 in with this as well, because round 3 I also played a Toga 3. And Mirio versus Toga 3, they're both very, very aggressive characters, but Mirio gets the benefit of having defense on face, whereas Toga 3 does not. Mirio is going to get to zero something out. I get to use like Runaway, Broken Psyche, these disruption pieces, so I don't care too much that Toga 3 is stunning down my stage. In the end, we felt like very similar characters, except the edge goes to Mirio because he actually gets defense on face, whereas Toga 3 does not. It felt like Mirio just plays race cars better than Toga 3. And so I went 4-0 against Toga 3 in my matches against her, and that was 2-0. In round 2, I played Brett Pendragon, also known as Dobby Guy, from the UK, and he was on Elder Toguro. I won the die roll, so I went first, and I won game 1 pretty quickly before Elder was able to establish his stage. Game 2 goes on for like 40 minutes. And we both build to these huge stages, but I know that this benefits Elder. I'm just not sure how Mirio is going to be pushing through Elder's stage without Brett making some sort of misplay. I got this sense very early on honestly like 10 minutes into the match because I didn't get a strong build. Elder did. Elder established a defensive stage really fast into the game. I got the early sense that I just needed to scoop and get to game 3, but I never did it. I never did it, and Brett ended up beating me in the last minute of the game in game 2, and so we tied. Going into round 4, I was 2-0-1. So beat 2 Toga 3s, tied Elder. I really kind of felt dumb that I didn't just scoop it up and go to game 3 because the Elder matchup isn't terrible for Mirio if Mirio's going first. And he can slam Elder before Elder establishes his stage. But I did not scoop. I thought at the time, honestly, in the Elder match that we were cutting to top 16. So I didn't think that a tie would be as damning as it was. And then after that match, I'm in the tournament chat on the Discord realizing that it only cuts to top 8 because so many people decided not to play at the last minute due to the whole Wish tournament cheating scandal situation. Because of that, it was cut to top 8. And then I felt very dumb for not just scooping game 2 and going to game 3. You do have to know with these aggressive decks when you're playing control decks when it's just time to call it quits and go on because a win matters so much more than a tie. So 2-0-1 in round 4, I play a Koda. In round 4 and round 5, I play Koda. And I play them on different symbols. Same thing with Toga 3. I played 2 Toga 3s, but one was on Chaos and one was on Death. I played 2 different Kodas. One was on Life and one was on Good. The Koda lists are actually very, very scary and they're quite aggressive. With all of the new ally support that we got in Yu Yu Hakusho, things like the power of Yoko, Urameshi, Perseverance, among other things, Koda just got, Keiko's aid seemed huge for Koda. Koda got a lot of tools to work with, and he basically gets to find every card in his deck very early on. He's using Tasty Riff to draw a million. He's using Command Pigeon Flock to build. Power of Yoko is going to get him a momentum. He can use that momentum with Urameshi Perseverance to grab whatever attack he wants. He's going to use Koda to draw like 5 cards in the middle of his turn. The Koda lists were just drawing like their entire deck in a single turn. And then they would play like 10 attacks. You have to commit a foundation with Koda so it doesn't count towards progressive, but Command Pigeon Flock builds, Tasty Riff builds, Power of Yoko doesn't count towards progressive just on its face. And so the Koda lists just were laughing at progressive, playing 10 straight attacks for printed. That's not very good for Mirio because I built my Mirio list with younger in mind. I want to zero out a massive move. With Koda, when they're playing like 10 moves, the Mirio zeroing out something matters a lot less than someone who's playing 5 moves and maybe one of them is a big dunk. And then Mirio's face really matters. So my type of defense was not set up to deal with these long strings of printed moves. Luckily, I did have a pretty good sideboard for this. I sideboarded my runaways into recovery time, which say, hey, if I take your Command Pigeon Flock for 5 damage, I'll play the recovery time, I'll gain 4 health back. If your Lurker Strike forces me to discard, I'll discard recovery time and I'll draw, I'll respond and draw 2. And then I also put Armor of the Ape in my sideboard, which says if it's in your momentum, -1 damage. And getting that out against Mike Hardiman on my round 5 Koda matchup was huge in game 2. Being able to say, hey, in this 10 attack string, this Armor of the Ape is saying -1 damage on every single one. And that really, really adds up. So the sideboard came in big against Koji Koda. They were very, very difficult matches. Game 3 against Mike Hardiman honestly was kind of a non-game. His deck just didn't work for him. It was one of those games where like he just couldn't find foundations. Mulligan couldn't find foundations again, so his opening build is bad. It forces him to have a very orange hand turn 2. Then he has to play some attacks to try and get to build because a lot of these Koda attacks build on their own. But then he was checking poorly on them. Everything just kind of went against Mike in game 3. That was kind of a non-game. But definitely a lot of respect for Koda with the Yu Yu Hakusho updates. So through 5 rounds, I played a very, very unconventional lineup of characters, 2 Toga 3s, an Elder, and 2 Koji Kodas. And I was 4-0-1. Round 6, I play the person who was in first at the time, Trenton Caudill, who was on Death Younger. And this was the matchup that I built Mirio to play against, right? I don't feel great about this matchup, but it seemed to be pretty solidly 50-50. I win the die roll. I win game 1. Game 2, I'm in a bad situation, but I just misplayed. It had been a long day, and what happened is, and this kind of came back to haunt me. I had a Cape of No Return in my stage, and I had a ready Mirio. And I was waiting for him to add the damage to Twisting Azure. Once he added, because I was at 4 health, and I wanted him to add the damage to Twisting Azure, and then I would zero out with Mirio. Because if I zeroed out with Mirio first, he would just add the 4 damage from his character. So I was going to use Mirio and wait for him to add the damage. And if he didn't add the damage, I had a 2 mid block in my hand. If I checked a 5, I could pass the block. I would have to commit Mirio, but I could still pass the block. So my hope was I will say pass. If he adds the damage, I'll Mirio. If he doesn't add the damage, I'll wait. And I'll just continue saying pass. And then I'll hope that they don't say pass before adding the damage, right? You have this whole timing situation going on. So in my head, I'm like, okay, wait. He says, add the damage. And then my head says, wait. And I say pass. And then he says pass. And then I died. I checked a 3 on the block, but it was in my mind, I was like, okay, just remember to wait. And then he actually added the damage, and my brain just didn't register it. And so game 2 felt really bad to lose that way, because I probably had, even though he had 30 health at that point, he'd only lost 1 or 2, I think, just from playing Syndicate targets as blocks. So even though I think I still had a pretty good chance, because he had committed himself out pretty far, and I had a very healthy stage, so I could have played whatever attack string I drew into. So that felt bad. Game 3, he got me. So then I was 4-1-1 going into round 7, so I'm on a win-in, I believe. I play against Death Kami Utsushimi. And what really embarrassed me about this matchup is that even though I got to reveal Kami Utsushimi, I had to ask him to read the character first. I couldn't quite remember what Kami did because it had been so many months since I had either played Kami or played against a Kami. So it was actually a very, very interesting build. I'm hoping to do a deck profile with him on his Kami Utsushimi list, because our match was very, very close. And if he had won, he would have been in top 8 with Kami Utsushimi's first top cut. So it was like using Punisher's Beam, because Kami can ensure the damage. It was a difficult matchup for me because I was depending on these massive Phantom threats and Armor of the Wolves. Chaos Mirio is making huge attacks and not necessarily stringing out attacks like good Mirio was. And so Kami being able to take something to 0 was quite difficult. I would have to make a dunk and then make another one. And I would have to work through his defense. And there was always Keiko's aids. I think 5 out of my 7 opponents were 4xing Keiko's aid. It felt like I was having to play through that foundation all day long. In fact, my number one way that I did play through Keiko's aid was simply not letting them block a single time. Because to use Keiko's aid, you have to block, right? So there were 2 or 3 games where this happened, where my rival would have 2 Keiko's aid, or a Keiko's aid and mini Keiko's aid, like the 1 diff. I can't remember what it's called. It's the 1 diff that says their next attack gets +1 difficulty. So they would have some mix of those on stage, and I knew that if a single block happened, I wouldn't have the foundation resources to push through an attack string. That is a downside of Chaos Mirio, is we are blowing up our stage quite frequently to get momentum. We're not playing a lot of foundation ramp. Therefore, we're having to play these strings on very few foundations, even 3 or 4 turns into the game. So my strategy against Keiko's aid was Soulful Rendition. Thank you, chat. My strategy against Keiko's aid was simply not to let them block a single time. So what I would do is play an Armor of the Wolf. At this point, I would already have 2 or 3 momentum. I would have foundations in my stage that said I could blow them up to get momentum. I would play the Wolf. I would play every single enhance I could think of to help get the damage up. I would blow up just my entire stage. There was one game, it was turn 4. I blew my entire stage up to where I only had 3 foundations. at the end of it. I was blowing every single thing up so I could get momentum. All my steaming spheres, vast hybrids, forced quirk activation, was doing everything I could, and then I would just EX it, and I would, ship a 20 for 20 Armor of the Wolf, and then they couldn't block it, and therefore the Keiko's aids never came in to save them, because a single block and I would have been toast. So I was playing against that card all weekend. Very, very difficult, but Armor of the Wolf came in clutch in those matchups. Because Phantom Threat I can get pretty fast. I can get Phantom Threat to like 9, 10, 11 speed, something around there. But I can't get it to like that 20 speed number needed just to push through. Even if they have 7 ready foundations, they still can't block it. Armor of the Wolf could get to that like 20 speed number to where if they didn't have some sort of reset, they were just dead. The Kamui Tsushima game went to game 3. I ended up winning on my very last turn in overtime. We had to play super quickly. Again, I probably should have scooped game 2. It was very apparent that Cammy had established this wall that I wasn't going to be able to punch through. My Chaos Mirio list wants to win early. I was going first game 3, which is a huge deal for Mirio. I should have just scooped game 2. I didn't. We ended game 2 with like only 5 minutes left. Had to play super quickly just to see turn 3. And then on turn 3, I drew into double Phantom Threat and Dark Tournament Looms because I had sided in Dark Tournament Looms. And that really, really helped. I won. I'm in Top Cuts. My first matchup in Top Cuts is against Trenton, the younger that I lost to and that I had misplayed against in our game 2. So I was really looking forward to this. Either Trenton would beat me and then it wouldn't feel too bad that I had lost in round 6 because it's like, okay, well, clearly that was, it was meant to be. And if I win, then I get to get revenge, and that also feels nice. So I'm going against Trenton in round 1, and I think I played really, really well. He got to go first game 1. He took game 1, but it was a close game. And then game 2 was very, very close. There was a point on my turn 4. He was at 22 health. I had gotten one big Phantom Threat in for damage, for 11 damage. Maybe it was my turn 3. It was turn 3 or turn 4. And he was so committed out that if I just drew 3 attacks, I think I win that game. But I drew 1 attack. Well, then I'm thinking, okay, I've got a way to draw on my stage, and I drew this Phantom Threat. If I get Phantom Threat to flash, then I also get to draw a card. So I get to draw 2 more cards. Let's just see how this goes. I flash Phantom Threat. I used my Fearsome Transformations to draw nothing. I drew all gray. What can you do? If I had drawn any amount of orange that turn, I win that game. So now I have to defend again. I keep a lot of cards in hand. My defense is going well. I have Cape of No Return. I have Mirio. I get a block in. I use Incredible Display to cancel a Tray Size Echo. I use a Runaway to stuff the card pool for Younger. He's like 4 attacks in, still has 9 ready foundations or something like that. And it's a Vile Seizing. It's a 3 high for, whatever it is, like 11 damage in Younger, Vile Seizing. He had been discarding his hand to Snack Time all along the way, so I knew that he had attacks in hand to find lethal. By this time, Younger draws so many cards. He had already seen like 10 or 11 cards. I know that he's got the attacks in hand, right? I need to basically hope that he can't get 3 more attacks out because I'm at like 6 health, so a single hit is going to kill me. But I have Cape of No Return in my stage. Once again, this sounds just like my round 6 matchup. I have a ready Mirio. I have Cape of No Return. I've got some 2 high blocks in my hand, 1 card in card pool because I had used I had 2 Incredible Displays out. I used 1 to cancel Tray Size and 1 to pick up my high block. So I've got the 2 high block in hand, and I don't think I'm going to be able to block again. I've kind of given up the game because if he can get 1 more attack in, I lose. I can zero out 2 attack. Yeah, I can blank an attack with no return. I can zero out an attack with Mirio, but then another attack is going to come out and I'm going to lose the game. And I'm not going to be able to block because he's going to use Snack Time. This is in my head at least. Well, then he says pass without using the Snack Time. He didn't use the Snack Time and said pass. So it's a 3 high Vile Seizing. I have 1 ready foundation, 1 in stage. So 3 plus the 2 block modifier, 5 plus the 1 in my card pool, 6. If I check a 5, I can commit the 1 in my stage and I get a block off. If I get a block off, Now I'm going to be able to zero something out, cape of no return out, and then he's going to have to play another attack on that progressive. And I had already used a runaway, so the progressive was pretty good at this point. He would have had to have passed a 7 check, an 8 check, and an 8 check. Let's see, if he checks rolling 5s, he would commit 2, 3, and 3. So he would have been able to do it because he needs to keep Younger ready. To get the damage in, needed to kill me. A printed damage move probably wasn't going to do it unless it's Battle Aura Release or like Vile Seizing. So 1 3 check out of those 3 checks, and I live to see my next turn. So I go for the block, and I check a 3, and I die. So I die once again with a ready Mirio and a Cape of No Return in my stage. Just figured it was going to be my last chance to block. Vile Seizing's the slowest move in the deck. Might as well go for the block and see what happens. And that was my weekend. It was a honestly very, very fun weekend. The judges did a great job running the event. The commentary team did a great job. The event as a whole was very, very well done. Every single round, a judge would jump into my table for, I would say, like 10 minutes of the round. Like, they would jump in, they would stay there for like a minute, and then they would jump out. And then another judge would jump in like 10 minutes later, stay there for a minute, and then jump out. And so they were just making sure that everybody's webcam setups were correct. Everybody's hands were in view. Nobody's like webcam screen was way too fuzzy to read or anything like that. There was no disconnect problems. They were just doing a really great job at making sure everything was good. I had, let's see, Peyton is in the chat. He jumped in a few times because I was misusing Force Quirk activation. Steaming Sphere says I destroyed to get a momentum. And then Force Quirk activation says I destroyed to potentially destroy a rival foundation. I pick out an enhance. If they don't play it as their next enhance, they destroy that foundation. I was using Force Quirk activation about 50-50 for the momentum or the selective destruction of my rival stage. And so I always would get it confused. I would get confused because I would say, I'm going to destroy Force Quirk to go grab momentum. And then Peyton would have to say, you remove Force Quirk to do that. So I got corrected on that twice. And again, that's because the judges were jumping in and out of the tables. It happened in different rounds. It wasn't like the same round when it happened. But I will know that for the future. I like Vast Hybrid with Armor of the Wolf. Yeah, there's so many ways to get momentum. Like, I was getting, 6 or 7 momentum and just saying, okay, I'll EX for 18 speed. And I've played so many enhances that plus Mirio, this is already like a 12, 15 damage move. And then you just EX it, and your opponent can't deal with it unless they have some sort of hand trap or reset in their stage or their hand. So that was my experience for the Webcam Regional. Very, very good time. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. I wish I had made it a little further because even though I got top 8, that's only 6 championship points. I got 5 championship, or let's see, I got 7 championship points. I think 6 from the top cuts and 1 for participating. But I got 5 championship points for going to a local qualifier that was 9 players and winning that local qualifier. So top 8ing a 100 plus player event got me just as many championship points basically as winning a 9-person local qualifier. Just to show how much UVS Games is pushing locals this year in competitive play to qualify for Worlds. Now, if this was a major regional, I would have gotten 14 points instead of 7, which would have felt a little better. But still, if you're trying to qualify for Worlds, locals is the name of the game. Attend every local qualifier you can, every local championship you can. Those events are going to be much, much easier. But this one still gets more publicity, and I'm happy with getting 7 championship points. That puts me at 12 right now. I'm trying to get at least 20 or 25 championship points per season to finish in like the 80 to 100 number. So if I don't top 8 Nats or don't win a major regional, I'm still in the hunt for qualifying for Worlds through championship points. Did you run into any Kuramas trying to make them work, miss the start of the stream? No, I didn't. I was 2 Kodas, 2 Toga 3s, an Elder, a Younger, and a Kami Utsushimi. No Kuramas. I think I might have been overrating Kurama, or it might just be that people aren't playing Kurama, because playing a 7-hander like Kurama in a meta where Younger is the elephant in the room. You know, Kurama saying, okay, I discard one attack on Younger, big deal. He draws a million cards. Every single one of his attacks draws him a card. He has the follow-up attacks to deal with it. So I think Kurama just kind of feels bad with Younger being the elephant in the room. Although I do have a teammate, Michael, who's been playing Kurama a lot, and he didn't play in this event or the Wish event. I'm sure if he had played, there's a good chance he would have made top cuts. He's probably the most experienced Kurama player out there right now. So as far as top cuts, Tam ends up winning, which I think is awesome. He was mentally exhausted from the cheating scandal that had happened, and it happened on his stream just a week ago. He was physically sick. He pushed through all of that and ended up taking down the event. He showed us all how to take down Younger. He beat Younger in top 4. He beat Younger in the championship. He beat Younger on his winning in. For Swiss rounds, he showed really good sportsmanship. He had forgotten to unside a card in his winning in match in Swiss. He called a judge, from what it looked like he called the judge on himself and got himself a game loss because he had forgotten to not sideboard out, and then still ended up winning that round with this control style deck, which was very, very impressive from Tam, giving us all hope that there's... Anyway, I put a how do we fix Younger post on like Facebook and Twitter, and everybody was just saying, just block. That must have been like half the comments. I'm telling you guys, Tam gave all of us way too much confidence. Younger is a serious problem. We had 8 players play Younger this event, and 2 of them made it into the top 3. 7 of the top 8 of the Wish was Younger. I don't care. You know, you can say, well, 2 of those were players who have been found out to be cheating. But Younger is still a massive problem. Yes, Tam played out of his mind well, but he's giving us a little too much confidence. I still think something needs to be done about Younger. Well, I've only got about 10 minutes here before I have to jump off and get to work personally. But let me just take some time, jump into each of these lists, and let's talk about the main idea. Tsuyu Asui is a character I was sleeping on a little bit. I think I had her in my top 50, but just outside like the top 25. But what this character really got is that the water symbol is much, much better now with Yu Yu Hakusho than it was before. It always played incredible defense with things like ice gliding, struggling with studies, surviving the final, faith, shield. Then you got fast friendship. The water symbol always played incredible defense, which Asui gets to take advantage of because she's going to draw a card every time she blocks, basically. She gets rewarded. And Faith Shield and Cheerful Uppercut are both specifically quite good against Younger Toguro. They are forcing him to play on progressive. Cheerful Uppercut was coming up huge for me, and in the games that I watched of Tam's, they seem to be coming up huge for him as well. He's got these referee juries for these resets coming from his hand. Prone to Dry Ice seems to be the way that he's killing people. He's playing these long strings, discarding his hand, and then the attacks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Double Trouble is kind of neat. It only counts as 1 in the card pool, but you get to discard 2 cards to Prone to Dry Eyes with it. We have the I Won't Back Down and Tasty Riff combo where we're getting applause counters. Pretty soon we are building in 2 and 3 diff foundations, or we're grabbing attacks pretty soon with Tasty Riff and putting them into our hand. Got the throws here to guarantee damage. This Spirit Slash was a cool piece, a 0 high block, and then when it leaves the card pool, you get to build something, and it can leave the card pool with like Struggling with Studies or with Asui. And it was just that, you know, everybody knows that Younger's playing a million high attacks. That was a pretty cool tech piece. So this is Tam's list. I don't think this is a list necessarily that just any player can pick up and start destroying Youngers. I think Tam was able to do that because he has put in, at this point, probably hundreds of hours of practice on this character. He went 5-1 at the Last Chance qualifier with Asui 3. The water symbol got a lot better this set. Very, very defensive. Tam's able to take advantage of that and block 1,000,000 times, because that's what you need against Younger. You need to be able to block 1,000,000 times, and then you need the right zones. So Asui always has the cards in hand. Asui, the water symbol, gives her all of the speed control needed. And that's how Tam was able to take down the event. In second place, we have this younger list that looks quite a bit different than the younger list that we've seen at the Wish tournament. Here we're playing cards like 80% power, 45% power, true 100%, unleashed. These aren't necessarily cards that just replace themselves. 80% power, I think, is criminally underplayed in younger Toguro decks. I think this should be 3x or 4x all the time. Selective destruction, forcing them into deadlock so you can hit them with like Ore Strike. Here is the deadlock. We don't see the Vial Seizings. Instead, we have 4x Ore Strike to force them to discard. Over here, we do not see Snack Time. This is something I was a little surprised by. So if you want to beat Tam's Asui with Death Younger, I think a Death Younger build kind of similar to mine, where you're playing the Frightening Calm, the Snack Time, you're playing the Deadlock Piercing Needle, Stun 3. I think a very stun-heavy game plan could have done it, because you're forcing the defensive player's stage down. Whereas here, the main way that we're taxing our opponent is Ore Strike, Deadlock, right? Force them to go into deadlock, use Ore Strike. But a good player can play around that. They can either keep themselves out of deadlock through destroying their stage, or like Asui is always just drawing cards, so the discard 3 isn't quite as potent. Here we see Pilot of the River Styx. This is pretty neat. Remove after a non-character responsibility is played, cancel it. This will pretty much always be online because we have Botan's Coaching and Mop Strike. I think that's kind of neat at a 3x. We're also seeing like Unsettling Aura, Toguro's Dominance, this getting a momentum, and then we can destroy our rival's stage when they're playing something we don't like. Prehensile Tail at a 3x. So between Prehensile Tail and Ore Strike, we've got our deadlock threats. We're not lacking the Vial Seizing too much. And 4-hexing the Genkai's Training. How many cards do we have? Well, I don't have time today. I wish I did, to go and look at the cards that we have that share 2 things of the symbols. Let's go into Trenton's Younger. This is a Younger that looks more like the ones we saw. We're playing every single cantrip that we can. We're 3xing Trace Eyes. We have, and then we're throwing Twisting Azure Inferno on top. Weapon Clash, Settling Old Debt. Yeah, Trenton's Younger is much more what we saw from the Wish tournament. We have a few changes here. Very noticeably, we are not running Showdown. We are not running Genkai's Guidance. That's a pretty big difference. But we're running a 37% attack ratio, so we're quite aggressive on the attacks. Maybe Trenton wanted to guarantee his builds would be a little stronger. Personally, when I was playing Trenton in Top Cuts, my strategy against this deck as Mirio was, I am going to call high every time, because there's no Showdown in the main board. The only high block I'm scared of is Vial Seizing, but if we look at all of the other high blocks, 3 high block, 3 high block, 3 high block, 3 high block, 3 high block. So Vial Seizing is the only high block that's not a 3 block modifier. If we look at the low blocks, we have 4 syndicate targets, which are a 0 block modifier. So my strategy in Top Cuts, once I saw his deck list, was, oh, I'm going to call high every single time. And then if he says that he's siding like 3 or 4 in, and those could be showdowns, then I might switch to low. But when we went to game 2, he said he was only siding 1 in. I knew it wasn't the showdown, so I was calling high every time as Mirio. When you're Mirio, you just let your opponent's deck tell you what zone to call. Okay, Corey Nelson is playing a list very similar to Younger. And in fact, we see Younger is in the sideboard, but he just slammed Shigaraki 3's face on it instead. Shigaraki, that's what's kind of crazy here. They're very different characters. Younger is kind of very aggressive, and at least the Death Younger builds that we've seen so far have been quite aggressive. And then Shigaraki is very control-based, but you can actually switch between them all right, because the death symbol is just so freaking good right now. The only differences here that we really see is we got true 100% unleashed at a 3x instead of like a 1 or 2x. That's because Shigaraki is struggling for damage. Shigaraki, he's not just throwing 4 or 5 damage on everything like Younger is. So we need something a little more powerful like true 100%. We got the Aura Slams to guarantee damage and help us build our stage pretty quickly. Over here, The main differences I see is just because it's a more controlled character, we need repeatable speed hate, right? So we've got learning to harden in here, and we've got defying fate in here. So a tiny bit more defensive in the foundations, but it's fundamentally still looks like a younger deck, and we can always just flip-flop into younger if we need. I'd be very curious to know the decks that he was switching into younger Toguro for. Ben Lambright, Death Mina. Now this one does look quite a bit different. The big thing that Mina got from Yu Yu Hakusho is Tray Size. It's a free echo that flips itself in the stage, and that's going to help Mina's game plan of when something does damage, they lose health equal to all the face downs. Mina kind of overcomes one of the big defensive plans in the meta right now. Right now, the meta doesn't so much like to block. We like to play these hand traps like Referee Jury that take the damage down to 4. Mina just laughs at Referee Jury. I don't care that you made the damage 4. You're still going to be taking 7 damage for all the cards in my card pool. Broken Psyche. Ooh, you made it 2 damage. Well, it's still technically 9 damage, right? Once they don't block. So Mina basically forces people to block in a meta where people don't like to block. We like to use our weapon clashes, our Referee Juries to get around blocking. Stylish Strike is very interesting in here. I guess we needed some draw. We're not really getting draw from any of our other attacks. Once again, we're seeing Cheerful Uppercut. This is such a meta-relevant card right now. Very, very good against younger Toguro. Number 5 Pro Hero, Mall Day. These are all kind of Mina-specific foundations, but the core of the foundations feels very death. Once again, Genkai's Guidance and Showdown. So the foundation base kind of looks like Younger's. It's just the death symbol right now is very strong. So we saw half of top cuts at the Webcam Regional was the death symbol, although we had Younger, Mina, and Shigaraki 3. Just kind of take your pick. Zane was going all in with this Vash list on these infinite combos using like Hardened Barrage and plus Ultra Smash combined with Award the Victor and All Might's Mentorship. If he gets the sense that his rival doesn't have the high block, he can just do the infinite combo. We've seen it before. When I was doing my Vash, before we even knew Vash's symbols, when I sent out, when I did that competition on, you can choose your symbol, make the coolest Vash or Spike list, and then I was going to give them a box. I had one of my locals actually make an all Vash list, focus on the infinite combo. I didn't choose it to win. Maybe I should have, because Zane now is coming and proving that this is a very, very potent strategy to go into. And just in case the Hardened Barrage combo doesn't really work, you can kind of get it with this Plus Ulcer Smash combo if you have less foundations than your rival on flip 1. So if you have less foundations, your rival doesn't have a way to destroy their foundations down to have fewer than you, then you can always get the infinite off that way. Vash is seeing so many cards in hand that, he's seeing 8 cards. He doesn't care about throwing an attack away if he's going to go infinite. Cool way to take Vash here. And then finally, we had Scott on Bakugo 4. I think this is Bakugo 4's first top cut. Dylan played Bakugo 4 at the HLC, but as far as like Swiss top cutting a major event, I think this is the first time. And I'm very, very surprised here that we are on the Void symbol instead of the Death symbol. Because Death to me gets Snack Time, and Snack Time with Explosive Rebuke. Well, Snack Time and Frightening Calm with Explosive Rebuke is kind of an alternate win condition to Bakugo. But Void, you're getting more draw. You're getting like Rewind Throttle and Rejuvenating Smash to draw there. We're also getting Titan Cliff to where we can discard 3 and draw 3. So the Void symbol is bringing a little bit more draw. Because in my Death Bakugo 4 list that I threw together, I was basically just playing the attacks with Bakugo's face on it, trying to get away with Stun Grenade being my only source of real draw. I rate Scowl is sometimes helping you, but this is a list more focused on discarding attacks from our rival's hand. Like we've got the 2x Vindicating Smash here. If this damage is 15 or greater, draw 2 cards and your rival discards 1, and the Deadlock of your rival discards 1. So congratulations to Scott for top cutting with Void Bakugo 4. I can't really go through this list nearly as much as the other lists because I honestly have not played Bakugo 4 a lot. So I would need to play around with this list to truly understand it. But very cool that we see this character finally make it into top cuts, and it's on a symbol that I didn't expect. I would have thought that this would have been our 5th death list, but here we are on Void instead. Maybe it's just that Rejuice Smash and Rewind Throttle, Titan Cliff, these were just too important to pass up. And there you have it. That was our top 8 for the webcam event. I think this was a really cool, diverse top cuts. Still, Younger made up 2/3 of the top 3, despite only 8 players playing Younger. Younger, to me, definitely a problem. But Tam showing us the way on how to block for forever and ever as Asui 3. And I'll be honest, I did not expect Asui 3 to take down a major event like this. I had her in my top 50, but I had her in like the tier where like, could top cut, probably not going to do anything at top cuts. And anyway, never bet against one of the best players in the game. If one of the best players in the game is saying Asui 3 is awesome and pouring all their time at Asui 3, maybe there is something there. I'm going to read some of these comments now. Do you think that Younger is a symbol break? I feel like he should have earth, air, or fire at the very least. I'm going to be honest. I watched Yu Yu Hakusho a long time ago, so I can't. It's very, very fuzzy to me. So I'm not sure like what symbols would have been technically more true to the show. I definitely put on a masterclass with that deck. Yeah, it was fun to watch. Having cast both his win in and final round, it was a wild ride. I can tell you actually didn't really swap over to Younger throughout the tournament, maybe 1 to 2 games. Okay, so Corey was most of the time staying on Shigaraki. And if I remember right, the name Corey Nelson with Shigaraki 3 sounds very, very familiar. I think Corey has made multiple top cuts in the past with Shigaraki. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure, but the name sounds very familiar. Not flavor, but symbol, like his mechanics don't match what his symbols are. Yeah, I do think that the symbols are a little less mechanically flavorful than maybe they used to be in the past. They're all kind of like together in a sense. But I guess he's not doing that evil mechanic of like playing from outside his hand or destroying his rival stage, like he's building his rival stage. So I could maybe see that. But that is going to do it for me today. I hope more webcam events are like this. I hope the format sticks around. I think judging did an amazing job. It was a lot of fun to play. All of the players didn't necessarily show up with what they thought was the best. And so that resulted in just a fun format as a whole. Like I got to play against 2 Kodas and a Kami Tsushimi, even in rounds 4, 5, and 7. I was playing against characters that you might not traditionally think of as characters that you would be playing if you're doing well at an event. Like Kami Tsushimi, I don't think I had Kami in my top 50. And she was on a winning end and almost beat me. Would have been a really, really cool top cut there. So very diverse field. I think Toga 3 was the most represented, probably just because Toga 3 feels to me pretty quick to pick up. Got a lot of new tools with Yu Yu Hakusho and feels good. I think just in the end that if you're playing an aggro 6-hander, you should probably just be playing Younger or Mirio instead. I think they're kind of the cream of the crop when it comes to aggro 6-handers. Although here we've got Scott and Ben maybe showing me differently with Bakugo 4 and Mina, and then Zane with this awesome Vash Infinite combo deck. Very, very enjoyable experience. If you did not play this last weekend, make sure that you play in the Season 2 Webcam Regional. I am probably going to be moving off of Mirio going forward and to a different character for Vegas. If they don't do anything about Younger, there is a very, very, very good chance that I will simply be playing Younger in Vegas. But we'll have to see, because if a Younger errata comes out, that's going to completely shift the meta and change about how I feel. You know, the available characters that I feel are open to me to play in a Younger meta are much, much smaller than I feel like if they errata him, it's much, much more open with the different strategies that you can go and take. So that will remain to be seen. We got a few weeks before we see the ban list. This week we got Critical Role coming out, and we're all going to be playing Critical Role decks. I just put together a Life Jester list, but I'll save that for another time. I'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoy your Tuesday.